Patrick has represented the city of Taylor in the water department for many, many, many years. I won't say how many years. Pull one of those menus off the table, Patrick. So this is the first step to I guess the end goal of possibly ownership of the system. Patrick, do you want to talk about the legal aspects and the service agreement and where we are as a group?
I'd be happy to, Mayor. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I do date all the way back to the first previous administration to provide legal services for the city. It's been my pleasure. Let's talk a little bit about DUWA and how it came to be. Taylor sends its wastewater to the Downriver sewer system treatment plant on the Dublin, Pennsylvania Wyandotte. And that was pursuant to a 1962 agreement with Wayne County. That agreement expired in March of 2012. Prior to that happening, the communities decided that they wanted to form an authority to increase their bargaining position with the county about a new service agreement. And 12 of the 13 communities, with Lincoln Park at that time being the only holdout, formed the Downriver Utility Wastewater Authority in 2010. And Taylor joined that authority in March of 2010. The purpose of the authority, among other things, would be to acquire, construct, finance, purchase, manage, administer, own, improve, in large extent, and operate or negotiate a new agreement with Wayne County or with a third-party provider. So that was the purpose of forming DUWA. Those negotiations started as to a new service agreement between the authority and Wayne County. But while in the midst of trying to negotiate a new service agreement, there was a change in administration at the county level. The evidence group supplanting the Bacano group. Based upon that, and Wayne County's difficult financial position they found themselves in, the discussions began to shift a little bit, and the focus now became upon whether or not the Downriver communities, through the authority, wanted to, in essence, take over ownership and control of the Downriver wastewater treatment system. Those negotiations went on, and finally, in May of 2016, a letter of intent was entered into between the authority and Wayne County. The purpose of that letter of intent was to lay out kind of a list of issues about a takeover by the local communities, the ownership and operation of the Downriver wastewater treatment system. The service agreement you have before you tonight for your consideration is really the critical first phase, the first thing that needs to be done going forward to affect the transfer of the system from Wayne County to the authority. And the reason is because the folks who are going to be selling the bonds to finance, in essence, the purchase price say that this is the first thing that has to be in place. There has to be a service agreement in place so that the potential bondholders have confidence that, in fact, there is a relationship between DUWA and the local communities such that they can rely upon the rates and the revenues produced from the treatment system to make sure the bonds are paid going forward. Just as a side note, this service agreement, which is before you, is largely the same agreement that was just about finalized between DUWA and Wayne County. The service agreement was approved by the city of Taylor, but was not approved by Wayne County as they moved their shift from trying to negotiate a new service agreement to an acquisition of the system. There are several key components of the service agreement. I'll just touch upon those briefly. And they're really covered in this two-page handout entitled DUWA Service Agreement Information. The agreement will constitute the legal basis of the authority to provide wastewater services to the Downriver communities. It establishes the rights and responsibilities for both the authority and the communities served by the system. And as I indicated, it's needed to provide a mechanism to finance the operation and maintenance of the system, the purchase from Wayne County, future capital improvements, and in particular, the purchase price. You'll see that I've listed some key issues, and I want to thank Keith for putting this together for us tonight, Keith Bach. Governance and decision-making is certainly a key issue, and there we're talking about how our decisions are made by the authority. Again, it's usually handled by a majority vote, one community, one vote, except there are some special items that require a supermajority of communities to approve them. For example, approving contracts over a certain amount, amending the Articles of Incorporation. They'll require a supermajority vote. Rates and rate making is another key issue. And again, DUWA will be responsible for setting those rates and collecting the revenue. The current methodology which is being used to establish those rates will be in place for the next 5 years. I think one of the beauties of this proposed transaction is that by the savings that we hope to generate by not having Wayne County provide the operation and maintenance, it's going to be provided by a private company called DUWA. We hope to save enough money going forward such that the impact on rates will be neutral. Another issue is maximum allowable flows. I'm not an engineer or technical person, but these will basically establish what the city can deliver to the treatment plant, both during wet weather and dry weather circumstances, to affect the treatment of the wastewater. I understand that the city's technical advisors are comfortable with that amount, with those amounts for both wet and dry weather.
Just a point of information, if I could, to that
Sure.
point. Wade Trim has been very involved in this entire process, so that they're very much up to speed. They have reviewed everything, and of course concur, as Patrick just said, that the allowable limits currently are well within the city of Taylor's parameters.
Thank you, Mayor. There is a provision in the service agreement for dispute resolution. There's also an issue with regard to the contract term. It's proposed that that be 25 years to give the folks who buy the bonds enough the comfort that in fact we're going to be around for a while. We're going to be raising revenues through our rates to pay off the debt. DUWA will be responsible for the managing the system, operating and maintaining the facilities. And we can hire our own employees, and indeed we've had the discussions with DUWA, one of the largest wastewater treatment companies in the world. They have been the provider of choice for us if in fact we get this deal done with Wayne County. The effective date of the agreement is going to be when all 13 communities enter into the service agreement and transfer the system from Wayne County to DUWA. This will not bind the city of Taylor unless and until there is a definitive agreement in place and concluded between DUWA and Wayne County. There's been much discussion over the years about if in fact the communities take over the system, do we want to be owners of the system or do we want to be customers of the system? And you'll see on our breakdown there that the communities will have a choice. But you don't have to make that choice right now. It will not have to be made until there is an agreement in place with Wayne County. My recommendation to the mayor is, since we're the largest player in this Downriver system, we certainly want to be part of the ownership group and not simply a customer. We want to have a seat at the table. We want to make sure that we're involved from the start in critical decision making on capital improvements and other matters. So that would be my recommendation if and when we get to that point with Wayne County. There are an awful lot of things that have to be done before we can finalize this deal with Wayne County going forward. Let me get my sheet here on that. That's on the second page of your handout. We have to first get the approval from all 13 communities to enter into the service agreement, and that's in the process right now. With a target date for the communities by late November or at the latest in December to approve the service agreement and authorize its execution. We have to obtain a favorable credit rating from our bond people, to make sure in fact we can issue bonds. There has to be a transfer of existing debt from the county back to the communities, including preservation of existing millage debt levies, which is critical. We have to negotiate a new NPDES permit with DEQ that will allow us to continue to send flows after they're treated into the waterways of the state. There are a couple of key issues about that. I'll just touch on briefly. One is called a blending issue right now, which allows the community during certain weather events to blend their secondary treatment flow and primary flow, so it's cleaner when it goes into the river. DEQ is trying to assert a position that they want to eliminate blending altogether, which would require a huge capital improvement. We have some confidence that we believe that some of the other ways that we can handle this blending issue will not require us to make this multi-million-dollar investment in the system. That's certainly a key issue going forward. We've retained Veolia to do a due diligence at the treatment plant, tell us what the assets are like, if there are any surprises or potential difficulties that we're going to have to face, and come up with the bill to pay for. That interim report they provided to us basically indicates that they've not found anything at this point which will require another major investment by the communities going forward to fix the problems at the plant. We have to negotiate a definitive agreement with Wayne County. That's in the process right now to officially transfer the system. We have to deal with existing vendors and suppliers to make sure that the contracts they have with Wayne County are, for example, assignable to us, or they're willing to enter into a new agreement with the authority. We have to adopt sewer use regulations to replace the ones that are being used by Wayne County presently. We will have to amend the articles of incorporation when we get down to the issue if you want to be an owner or if you want to be